This conference will now be recorded.
So in yesterday's session, we discussed about what is performance testing, how to calculate the response time. We have just recorded some login functionality using a component called Eugen, which is a part of LoadRunner tool. And then we recorded that login flow, and then we ran that particular script, and we were able to see the response time of the login functionality. So, but that is for one user. So in general, in real time, the performance testing is done with hundreds or thousands of users, right? For example, if there is a bank application, okay, morning 9 p.m. or 10, no, morning 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Assume that 100 or 200 people will access the bank application. Okay, so all those people who are accessing that bank application uh, at that point of time are called concurrent users. Okay, at that point of time uh, they are called concurrent users. So this is the bank website, let's assume it, and these are user 1, user 2, user 3, so on till user 100. These are the number of users who are trying to access the bank application at some point of time, let's say morning 10 a.m. And all these users are nothing but people who are accessing bank application, right? And these users who logged in simultaneously are called concurrent users. In performance testing terminology, these are called concurrent users. Okay, in performance testing terminology, these are called concurrent users. And going forward in our sessions, I might use this term concurrent users, so you should not get confused. Okay, so if you see, users are nothing but people accessing the bank application, and all these users who logged in simultaneously are called concurrent users. Okay, so they try all these 100 users. What they do, they access the bank application, and they try to perform various activities, various actions like downloading bank statement, checking bank balance, and paying credit card bills, etc. So as a performance tester, if you want to test a bank application, then you have to simulate all these 100 users, and you have to write scripts for all downloading statements and checking balance and paying credit card bill and so on. And then we have to run these scripts using controller or performance center, and then we have to analyze how fast the application is responding, how fast the bank application is responding. Okay, so for example, if all the transactions of all the transactions or the actions, they are responding within less than 2 seconds, which is the industry standard, that means your application is performing real quick or as expected. And if it is greater than 2 seconds, or if it's taking 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 15 seconds, or from navigating to one page or to the other, or performing any other action, then we have to look into that. There is might be there is some issue which we have to look into that. Okay, so that's how the real-time performance testing is done. Now, whatever we discussed till now is a kind of generic definition, generic concept-wise definition. Okay, but we have to see what is the actual definition, the textbook kind of definition as well. Even though this is not asked in the interviews, this is not at all asked in the interviews. However, we have to understand the definition, the textbook kind of definition as well. So we'll look into that now. So here, performance testing is an application, testing an application for speed, stability, and scalability in production-like environment under virtual user load to meet non-functional requirements. This looks somewhat confusing and somewhat kind of difficult as well to trace it, but this is how it is. We have to understand the terms within this definition. For example, we have to understand the terms speed, stability, scalability in production-like environment, non-functional requirements. If you understand these words, or this terminology, then it is easy to phrase this particular definition as well. Okay, now let's discuss these speed, stability, and scalability first. Okay, so okay, so performance testing is measured using speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, so what is speed? Okay. What is speed? How fast the application is responding to your request with expected or current load. Okay, so just know whatever we have discussed. The example, the bank application. 100 people are accessing your bank application at some point of time. Okay, how the application is responding to your request. Okay, are the response times within SLA or not? So we have to verify all these things. So speed is all about how your application is responding. Okay, so initially way back in 10 years or 15 years ago, performance testing was only measured with respect to speed. That is this one. But later on, due to the changes in the IT industry and changes coming with respect to the real-time issues and all, the other two concepts are also in picture, like stability and scalability. Okay, so we'll see stability. So what is stability? So what it means is that your application should not degrade. Your application performance should not degrade. Okay, even after you run your application, scripts, or even after you run your application for long time. Okay, for example, if you are testing your application for stability, that means you have to you have to run your performance test for at least 8 hours or 5 hours or 8 hours, or in fact 1 day, 2 day, or max 5 days. Okay, so why we have to run our performance test for these many hours? So in order to ensure that our application is responding equally, like in the first hour. Okay, in the first hour, how the application is responding, in a similar way it has to respond in the last hour as well, even though if it is after 3 days or 1 or 8 day or 8 hours or 1 day or 2 days, your application should respond in a similar way. The performance should not degrade. For example, in the first hour of your test, your application, all the transactions response times are coming less than 2 seconds. Okay, and uh, in the after 8 hours of execution, your application is responding, let's say for 10 seconds or 15 seconds. It is taking 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So that is not it should not be like that. So if it is responding less than 2 seconds in the first hour, it should also respond in the same way in the after 8 hours as well. So that's what the stability means. We have to test our application for stability. The performance should not degrade. Okay, and then comes scalability. So scalability is nothing but, for example, today our application is being used by 100 people, and in the next 1 year, our application might be used by 200 people. That means there is a 100% increase in the users. Okay, so keeping that in mind, now itself we will test for 200 users. Okay, so keeping that in mind, keeping future growth. Okay, keeping future growth, where we will test it. We'll test the application for scalability. Okay, that's what it is saying. Application's ability to handle increasing users without performance degradation. Even though if I test my application with 100 users or 200 users, it should respond in a similar way. Okay, so these are the three important terms. So performance testing is measured using speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, so remember these three terms. I will relate it to the types of testing. So there are different types of testing that we do actually. So I'll relate these three terms in next few minutes to one of those testings. Okay, so each one of those. Then what was the other terminology after speed, stability, and scalability is production like environment. Okay, so what does that mean, production like environment? Okay, for example, in the production, I'm assuming that you people are aware of the terms like server and all. But however, we have a separate session maybe tomorrow for discussing about the server architecture. Okay, we'll discuss what is a server and all everything. but for time being, I'm assuming that you know a little amount of information about the servers. So in production, whatever the infrastructure is available in production, whatever the infrastructure is there, the similar kind of infrastructure should be available in our testing environment as well. Okay. So for example, in production, there are 2 application servers, 1 database server. Okay. Then here also, wherever we are testing in that environment also, we should have 2 application servers and 1 database server. Okay. In that case only, we'll be able to test. We'll be able to test the application for performance. If the infrastructure is not similar to the production, then you know it is not suggested to go for a performance testing, because the results may vary. So if you are having only 1 application server in testing environment and 2 application servers in production environment, then the response times may vary, because you know the 2 application servers might give us better response times than 1 application server. So this is equally important. Whenever you are testing any application for performance, before starting the performance testing, you should ensure that wherever you are testing in that environment, the infrastructure should be similar to the production environment. Okay, so this is very important thing which you have to remember before you know, it is a part of performance testing process. So then we'll discuss types of performance testing. So you know, once we understood, you know, on a high level what is the performance testing all about, now we'll see what are the different types of performance testing. So these are the 5 different types of performance testing: load test, stress testing, endurance testing, scalability testing, and volume testing. So in some projects they might have different names. We'll see that as well. They call it with different names. For example, endurance, they call it as soak test, duration test, something like that. And you know, so we'll look into these types of performance testing one by one. Okay, the first one is load test. Okay, so the load test is nothing but whatever we discussed initially, like you know, there is a bank application and the client is asking 100 users. Client is asking us to test with 100 users, and all the 100 users are you know, trying to access that bank application. And now we are testing, we are checking for performance of that. Okay, so it ensures, load test ensures that the application under test is stable and can handle expected load once the application is deployed. So what it means is that the client is saying that the expected load is 100 users. For example, client is saying expected load is 100 users. Now we are testing our application with 100 users. Okay, as a performance tester, we are testing our application with 100 users. Now this load test ensures that with those 100 users, our application is behaving, you know, performing better. So we have to ensure that our application is performing as expected. Okay, so that's the reason we perform the load test. Now, who will give us this number like 100 users, 500 users? What is the load? See, there is an application and I have to test with 500 users. Now, who is giving this 500 number to us? Okay, who is giving the 500 number to us? Here, any guess? If any one of you can answer this, that's well and good. So, who is giving this 500 number to us? There is an application which we have to test. Yes, sometimes business analyst will give, and sometimes directly the product owner or the client itself might give. Okay, yeah, the stakeholders or the product owners or the business analyst will give us this number. How do they get this number? They also, see, they should also get this number from somewhere, right? So from where are they getting this number 500? I have an application to test, and they asked me to test with 500 users. So somehow they might have got this number from some source, isn't it? So how are they getting this number? Any idea? How to get the expected load is the question. So generally, when I say expected load is 500 users, so this is very frequent question. You might ask that how are we getting this expected load? Who is giving this number? So obviously business analyst or client or or product owner, or in fact all the stakeholders together might give this number, but they are giving this number based on some source. Like they'll see in the last 6 months or last 1 year historical data. Okay, exactly, Dhanasri. So they'll go through the historical data, like in the last 1 year, in which month, in which day, or in which day, or in fact which hour. Okay, there was peak load, maximum number of users accessed our application, which month, which day, and what is the time frame. That particular time frame, what is the time frame? What is the max number of users access the application? So by going through the historical data, maybe through some SQL queries or some applications like Google Analytics and all, they will get this number for us. Okay, so we are not very much concerned about it, but we have to know how they get it. But in fact, in real world, we will not directly get it, but we'll get this number from some source. So once we get it, we'll go for a load test. Okay. Yeah, you can use the analytical tools like Splunk as well. Splunk, or in fact, you can use a normal database, or in fact, you can use some paid sources like Google Analytics and all. Okay. And then the next one is stress testing. So generally, stress test is conducted by increasing the user load gradually until the application breaks. So here, what is the main point is, like, we have to test when the application breaks. Okay, so we have to keep on adding the users. Like client says 500 users for load test. So what we have to do is we have to keep on increasing, like 500, 600, 700, 800. We have to keep on increasing the users. Okay, and then when at some point of time it breaks, that's the breaking point. Then we have to say, okay, we have to inform the client that this is a breaking point. Okay, so in fact, for example, if you go to a restaurant and if there is a server, or if you are going to a restaurant, let's assume it, and there are 5 tables. Okay, and there are 5 tables, and there is a server who is looking after those 5 tables for taking orders and serving food. Okay, and let's assume that he's able to take all the orders from all the 5 tables, and then he is able to deliver the food. Okay, now the management of that restaurant decided to add 3 more tables. Now the number of tables are 8. Now this particular server who is taking orders from 5 tables, he's okay to take orders from 8 tables, but he is able to take orders from 8 tables, and he is able to deliver the food as well. Okay, but knowing that the restaurant management has decided to increase the tables from 8 to 15, then this server was not able to take the orders from all the 15 tables, because it was out of his control. He was not able to take the orders, and he was not able to deliver the food at all for them. Okay, it is out of control. That means the max he could take is only 8 tables. So that was a breaking point. So now here also in performance testing, what is the maximum number of users the application can handle? Okay, that point we have to obtain. So our objective of this test is to obtain the breaking point or saturation point. Okay, and once the breaking point is attained, there is a notable increase in errors, and also there is a big increase in response time. Like for example, in the restaurant example, the server might be able to deliver the food sometime, even though if it is increased to 15 tables, but the time he will take to deliver the food will drastically increase. Okay, for example, for 5 tables, he was able to manage with 15 minutes. Now with 15 tables, he may not be able to deliver the food even after 2 hours. Okay, and in the same case here also, once the breaking point is attained, we'll be able to see huge response times. Okay, it will definitely break the SLA of 2 seconds. Probably it might end up somewhere between 50 seconds, 200 seconds, 100 seconds, something like that. And sometimes the application might fail to respond, and we might see the errors as well. Okay, so that's all. That is all about the stress testing. Okay, And then comes the endurance soak or duration test. So different projects or different people call with these different names, but the meaning of overall meaning is same, but the naming is different. In some projects they call endurance, in some projects they call duration and all. So what is the main objective of this test is testing the application for stability. Okay, like we discussed, what is stability? We test the application for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 8 hours, right? So we are testing the application for stability. If you see, so the test will run for 8 hours, 1 day, 3 days, or 5 days as well. And why do we perform this test? To ensure that the application is behaving similar in the first 1 hour of the test and at the last 1 hour of the test as well. So the constantly it was maintaining the response times. Okay, so we have to ensure that if there is some deviation, if it is taking more time, but then we have to analyze what went wrong. Is the application not able to handle? So we have to analyze going further. So purpose of this test is to identify performance bottlenecks like memory leaks and all. Okay, so I'll explain you this memory leaks concept at a later point of time. Now I'm not sure if you people understand this because it is related to a concept related to heap memory of the Java. So we'll discuss this in detail again. This is all about endurance or soak test. Okay. So next comes scalability test. So scalability, as I told you, keeping the future growth in mind, we have to test the application with double the load or 50% more, or in fact 200%, 300%, 400% of the current load, right? So who will give this number again? The client will give us. So currently client is saying that for the load test, you do it with 100%, 100 users. Okay. But at the same time, he will also say that my future growth, my application demand might increase by 50%. My application demand might increase by 50% in next 1 year. For example, if 100 people are accessing my application in next 1 year, it might increase by 50%. That means 150 people might access my application next 1 year. So keeping that in mind, I'm testing the application for performance with 150 users now itself. Okay, so that is all about the scalability test. Okay, testing the application for future load. Test is performed using the user load considering the growth of the application under test down the years. Okay, you see the current expected load is 500 users, assuming 50% growth in the next year. So the test will be done using 750 users now itself. Okay. And the final test is the volume test. So this is more related to database, and the only change we do is this is pretty much similar to load test. Okay, the number of users will be same. The number of users will be same as load test, but the data in the database will be increased. Wantedly they will increase the data in the database, and they will see how the response times are coming. Okay, for example, you are testing your application with 100 users, and you start using okay, application is deployed, and in production you keep on using the application, and after using the application for 1 year, the number of records in the database increased to 3 lakhs. Okay, currently previously it was 1 lakh or so, but after using the application for 1 year in production, the data in the database, the records in the database increased to 3 lakhs. So now keeping that in mind, now itself I'm going to do a volume test by wantedly inserting 3 lakhs data in the database and see how the response times are coming. Okay, so that's all about the volume test. Okay, so if you see, it will be same as load test, except that huge data populated in the database. Purpose of this test is to check if there is any change in response time with increase in DB volumes. Okay, and so that's the current example as well. Currently there are 1 lakh records in DB, and assuming after 1 year there would be 4 lakh records. So the test would be currently done with 4 lakhs records data in database. And 70 to 80% of the performance issues, they you know they are related to database only. Most of the performance issues are you know, with respect to database only. Some of they have to tune SQL queries, okay, or the, you know, mostly the SQL queries issues might come. So what the developers do is they tune the SQL queries to ensure that, you know, the correct data is getting populated within expected time. Okay, they use a lot of concepts called indexes, clustering, so many concepts, and they ensure that the data is coming real quick from database. Okay, so these are the 5 different tests. Okay, so these are the 5 different tests as a performance tester we have to do. So most of the projects they do the load test, endurance test, and scalability test, and depending on the requirement, they do stress test and volume test. So what is the base? What is the base for all the tests? For stress test, endurance, scalability, volume, the base is load test. If the load test is not successful, then there is no point in doing stress, endurance, scalability, and volume. Okay, so that's the base test. So every project will have to go for load test first, and then if it is successful, then only they will go for endurance, scalability, stress, or volume, depending on the project requirements, depending on the client requirement. If the client is not asking for volume test, they will not test it. If the client insists only for load test, they will do load test. However, they recommend for endurance and scalability tests as well. But the end decision is client's decision, and the response times also will be given by client itself. If it's 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, if the client is okay that no, we can navigate from one page to another page within 5 seconds, that's fine. If client is okay, then, you know, we should stick to that. Okay, but if client is saying but the navigation from one page to another page should not exceed 2 seconds, then we have to ensure that it should not exceed 2 seconds. Okay, so we have to identify that issues, and we have to take it to the development team and get it fixed. So, and any questions with respect to today's session? You can post your questions. You can ask your questions. You can post your questions there. So we do all these types of tests using LoadRunner itself. Okay, in our sessions, in our training sessions as well, we'll start with we will do a load test, and you know, we can go for endurance test, scalability test as well. It depends, no, but the base is load test. The load test is successful, then only we'll go for other tests. So if there are no more questions, then we can wrap it up, and I'll give you your 30 minutes of time. So go through the session once.
This conference will now be recorded.
So one question, like Dhanasri question, I already answered. Like you might have to see the graphs, like garbage collection and other things. So based on that, you can identify the memory leak. And coming to Ravi, if QA environment and production configuration is not same, then what to do? Then we have to ensure that both are same, or we have to do a scale up or scale down within our environment. For example, if there are 2 application servers in production environment and only 1 application server in testing environment, then we might have to reduce the number of users here, and we have to test it. Okay, if there are 100 users being tested in production, we have to test here with 50 users, and we have to tell client that there is a risk involved here, because there is no production like environment. I'm testing it with lesser volume, and I'm not guaranteeing that these might be the response times in production as well with double number of users. So there is a risk involved there. If your client accepts that risk, then it's well and good, or else he can upgrade the testing environment infrastructure to the production like environment. Okay. And question from Asif is how many hours we can design the endurance test. See, it depends on the project. Uh, in my project, I did for 3 hours as well, but in most of the projects it will be minimum of 8 hours, and it can go up till 5 days as well. Okay, so it depends on the project. Initially they test for 3 hours or 8 hours. If everything works well, they'll go for 1 or 2 days, because we'll have multiple test windows. They slowly increase the number of days. So at a time also they can do, but it's better always to go with 8 hours initially, and then if that works well, go with 3 days or 5 days. Uh, any other questions? See, Jmeter, Asif is Ravi is asking, or Asif Ravi is asking what is the major difference between Jmeter and Blazemeter. Actually, there is a lot of difference. It's a LoadRunner is a paid tool, right? But Jmeter, no, it's a freeware. We can use it. LoadRunner supports many protocols, more protocols than Jmeter, and I can give you the list of protocols supported by Jmeter and LoadRunner both. So there you can find some difference. LoadRunner, they Microfocus will provide support for LoadRunner. For example, if you are facing some issue while scripting with for some of the while any one of the protocol, we have a Microfocus support team who can provide you the support. Okay, and at the same time, it ensures data security as well. Most of the banking and financial institutions go with LoadRunner just because of data security. Okay, the cost wise, LoadRunner is little bit high and compared to Jmeter. And graphs and all, analysis wise and everything, it's easy to script and perform execution using LoadRunner. Jmeter, yeah, because it's a freeware tool, slowly features are coming. Slowly the number of protocols supported by Jmeter is also increasing. Okay, so that's it. These are the major differences. What is the load percentage can apply for endurance? Endurance test, generally it depends on the project. Some of the projects they go with 100% load. Some of the projects they go with 75% load. So it depends. So if your project, if if you're going to a new project, if it's all new project, if it's a brand new project and you have to start it, you can take your decision 100% or 75%. If it's an existing project, see what they are following, and go and apply the same if it's 75 or 100%. But ideally they'll go with 100 or 75, but most of the projects go with 75%. uh, Thanks, Ravi, Ashif, Dhanasri, and others for posting questions. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you for your participation. Request you to go through the demo, today's demo and yesterday's demo as well, and post your questions. If you're getting any other questions after this session, please post the questions in our WhatsApp group. I'll be able to answer there. Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone.